London, 2011. A university student boards the last night bus home, but she's not alone. There's a man sitting at the back, staring at her without blinking. Every time the bus stops, he moves closer. And when the driver finally checks the passenger list, there's no one else on the bus. It was Friday night, October 14th, 2011. Amelia Hart, a 21-year-old psychology student, had just finished a late shift at a cafe near Oxford Circus. The city was still alive, but she was exhausted. Her backpack felt heavier than usual, stuffed with textbooks and an unfinished essay. By the time she reached the bus stop, it was 12:40 a.m. The air smelled faintly of rain and wet concrete. Far away, you could still hear laughter and distant music from pubs. But here, it felt unusually quiet. The N25 night bus finally arrived at 12:46 a.m., its headlights cutting through the drizzle. The doors hissed open. Amelia scanned her Oyster card and climbed aboard. The lower deck had only one passenger, an older woman sitting near the front, reading a small paperback book. Amelia nodded politely and headed upstairs, where she liked to sit when the bus was nearly empty. The upper deck was quiet. Too quiet. There was only one man sitting at the far back, near the window. She barely noticed him at first as she slid into a seat on the right-hand side, halfway down the aisle. She put in her earbuds, opened Spotify, and stared out the rain-streaked glass as the bus pulled away. Visual prompt: interior of a dimly lit London night bus, upper deck almost empty. A young woman sits by the window, raindrops trailing down the glass, faint reflections of city lights outside. For the first 20 minutes, nothing happened. The bus rolled through empty streets, stopping occasionally to let people on and off. Amelia scrolled through her phone, replying to a few texts, yawning softly. Then, something made her glance up. The man at the back was looking at her. Not casually, not curiously, just staring. At first, she brushed it off. London night buses could be weird. She'd seen drunk strangers, couples arguing, even people falling asleep and missing their stops. But something about this man felt different. He wasn't moving. He wasn't scrolling his phone. He wasn't even blinking. Just sitting there, hands clasped on his knees, eyes fixed straight at her. Amelia shifted uncomfortably, turned up her music and forced herself to look outside. 10 minutes later, she risked another glance. The man was closer. Amelia considered going downstairs, but something stopped her. What if she was overreacting? What if he thought she was being paranoid? Besides, the lower deck was almost empty too. She decided to stay put, but something in her gut told her this was a mistake. The bus rattled past Mile End Road, then slowed for another stop. A couple of students climbed aboard, laughing loudly, sitting 2 rows ahead of Amelia. For a moment, she felt relieved, but when she glanced back again, the man had moved even closer. Now he was 4 seats behind her, and this time, she noticed something she hadn't before. His clothes were wrong. His jacket looked old-fashioned, like something out of the 1970s. The collar was wide, the fabric worn and faded. His shoes were polished but outdated. Her breathing quickened. She reached into her bag and wrapped her fingers around her phone like a lifeline. Amelia finally decided. At the next stop, she'd go downstairs and sit near the driver. She rehearsed what she'd say in her head. "Excuse me, there's a man following me upstairs." Yes, that was safe. That made sense. But when the bus stopped again, nobody got off. and she couldn't make herself move. Then something stranger happened. A young man came upstairs from the lower deck, earbuds in, scrolling his phone. He walked right past Amelia, glanced at the man behind her, and froze. For a second, his expression changed. Confusion, then something like fear. He looked at Amelia, then at the man, then shook his head slightly, and went straight back downstairs. Visual prompt. Medium shot. A passenger pauses halfway up the stairs, looking startled as his eyes lock onto the mysterious man behind Amelia, then retreats back down quickly. Amelia's heart pounded in her chest. She wasn't imagining this. Something was. Amelia's fingers tightened around her phone as she glanced at the time. 1:09 a.m. Still at least 20 minutes before her stop. Her flatmate hadn't replied yet. The 3 dots never appeared. She slipped the phone back into her lap and told herself to stay calm. It's just a strange guy. Ignore him. That's all. But the thing was, she couldn't. The bus turned sharply onto Whitechapel Road, streetlights sweeping past the rain-streaked windows. Amelia focused on the reflections, trying to avoid looking at him. But she could feel his stare burning into her back, a weight pressing on her shoulders, like he wanted her to know he was watching. Finally, she made herself look. Slowly. Casually. He was 1 seat behind her now. The space between them, gone. Her chest tightened. She swallowed hard and stood up, pretending to adjust her bag. Without turning around, she started walking toward the stairs. Her boots thudded softly against the thin carpet. 1 step. 2 steps. 3. Then she heard it. Another set of footsteps. Right behind hers. She froze halfway down the aisle, pretending to check her phone again. Behind her, silence. Then, so faintly she almost thought she imagined it. A whisper. Don't go. Her head snapped around, but the man wasn't looking at her anymore. He was staring straight ahead, still and stiff, as though nothing had happened. Amelia's throat went dry. She didn't care if she looked paranoid now. She went straight downstairs and sat right behind the driver. The older woman she'd seen earlier was still there, reading her book. Amelia leaned slightly toward her and whispered, "Excuse me, have you noticed that man upstairs?" The woman frowned, glancing up from her book. "What man?" Amelia blinked. "The one at the back. He's been staring at me the whole..." Felt relieved. But somehow, this was worse. The driver glanced in the mirror. "You all right, love? You look white as a sheet." Amelia hesitated. Do you see the man who just came downstairs?" The driver frowned. "What man?" Her blood ran cold. Amelia's mouth went dry. She turned her head slowly, heart pounding so hard she thought she'd faint. The man was gone. But when she looked up the staircase, there he was again, back at the top, watching her. Her vision blurred with panic. She clutched her phone, unlocked it, and started to dial 999. Then the bus jerked violently to the side. Brakes screamed. Amelia slammed against the seat in front of her. The driver cursed loudly. Somebody had stepped out into the road. Through the front window, Amelia saw him. The man was standing in the middle of the street, directly in the headlights, head tilted slightly, smiling faintly. But that wasn't possible. He was upstairs. The driver leaned on the horn and shouted, "Oi! Get out of the bloody road!" but the man didn't move. He just stared at Amelia through the glass, and then he stepped backward into the darkness and vanished. The driver swore under his breath and kept driving, muttering about drunk lunatics. But Amelia couldn't speak. She couldn't breathe. Her hands shook violently as she texted her flatmate again. "Please call me. Something's wrong." No reply. 5 minutes later, the bus turned onto Bow Road. It was quieter now, emptier, the city fading into darkness. Amelia dared to glance up the staircase again. The man wasn't there. For the first time that night, she let herself breathe. She thought maybe it was finally over. Then she heard it. Breathing. Right behind her. As she darted down side streets, lungs burning, the sound of distant traffic fading behind her. Finally, she reached her block, the familiar terraced houses of Stratford. Relief washed over her as she spotted her building. She sprinted up the path, fumbling with her keys, throwing one last glance over her shoulder. The street was empty. Inside, she locked the door, bolted it, and collapsed against the wall. Silence. Safe. Or so she thought. An hour later, Amelia sat in bed, scrolling her phone, trying to calm herself. Her flatmate was asleep, no reply to her messages. She pulled the curtains shut and turned off the lamp. Finally, she started to relax. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps against the glass of her bedroom window. On the 3rd floor. Her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she turned her head toward the window and froze. The pale man was outside, pressed against the glass, smiling faintly. She screamed. The lights flickered, and just like that, he was gone. The next morning, Amelia reported the incident to the police. They checked the CCTV outside her building, interviewed neighbors, and inspected the street. Their conclusion? There was no man on that bus. Nobody followed you home. The cameras show no one was outside your window. Amelia moved out of London 2 weeks later. She never took a night bus again. If you ever take the last bus home in London, sit downstairs. Because sometimes the upper deck isn't empty.